All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
Well, folks, please, I'm overwhelmed, as you might imagine, a bit humbled, and I might say buoyed by your recorded applause. It means so much to me. Kim is here, and she
Kim, how are you?
Has been working all night. We had a confab late last night. She was deep in it, man, deep in it. And Tony's here.
Thanks, Tony.
He's always deep in it. You know, he's got 14 jobs. Can't afford to break stride. He's got to pay for all those video games that he's building and these computer programs that he's got. And I just got to new this and I got to new that. Whenever we get a piece of hardware in and we don't think we can use it on the show, Tony says, I'll buy it from you. No problem. I'll buy it from you.
Now tell the problem the thing was cool.
It's just the greatest, man. You're the real thing. All right, today on the show, the great Gary Dietrich joins us. We'll talk politics in America and the shift toward a kind of radicalism that is scary, to say the least. We'll talk about tariffs. I know you love your tariffs. Yep. We'll talk about tariffs. Stephen Miller said some scary things on Fox News Channel. Actually, a lot of people said scary things on Fox News Channel, and we'll update TikTok as well. So there's a lot to get to. I wanted to welcome everybody in. We are a 2-hour live show, 2 to 4 in the East, 11 to 1 in the West. We come from the United States of America, and we try to give you a sense of what's happening nationally and even internationally. And speaking of internationally, there was a huge, but I mean immense protest in London, and it is associated with a, depending on who you speak with, on a number of issues related to being British and the freedom to fly the flag in Britain and all that. There it is. Tony's showing you a bit of the aerial shot.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, they said that over 100,000 people showed up. We'll talk about that. In fact, we'll give you a little package from there to give you a sense of things. But it's not just America, is the point. There is a lot going on. This is oftentimes the way it happens. You know, when you see a movement of one sort in a superpower like America, or just a huge power like America in this case, it's often either in response to or can lead the sort of change you can see internationally, and we're seeing some of that now. So if you're seeing a rise of nativism, I would suggest. You're seeing a pushback on a lot of immigrants, not only the immigrants who you associated with labor, like low-cost laborers who immigrate to various places to try to find work, but even foreigners who are moving about the globe to escape whatever. I mean, Americans moving to Europe because they don't particularly like Trump or whatever it might be. The pushback now is real. So we'll get into a little bit of that as well. I wanted to recognize
I've received a lot of positive letters.
Yeah, I did get a positive letter and a contribution into the show. You know, we're a crowdfunded show. Most people will join us through Patreon and PayPal and support us that way. It's a great community. You guys have been terrific. Honestly, I've said it ever since we started. I say it to Kim privately. I tell everybody everywhere who asks me about the show and how this entire show is dependent and exists because of like 700 people. I mean, that's the whole, without you guys, we wouldn't even be here. So we run your names at the end of every show, Patreon and PayPal folk, but there are people who don't want to go through Patreon and PayPal. And so they send us checks. And I always say, if you want to send us a check, send me an email, which is themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. And then I'll send you back the address where you can send a check. And I always figured, not too many people are going to, but when they do, they really do. And here is a letter. It came in from Brian, and Brian is a wonderfully...
I've received a lot of positive letters.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm going to get to... Thank you, Mark, for your show. I listen to the podcast, he writes, so I am usually a day behind. Your show is what does that say, Kim? A major part of my day.
Oh.
I'm always disappointed when you are gone from the show. But Michael Shore is a great backup. I guess I should have pre-read this. I don't know. I didn't pre-read it. I just
Okay.
I hope I am so glad you have started mentioning the people writing checks, he says. I hope the check writing number grows. I love listening to your stories about poker games, and a party with famous people. Is that what he says? Party, or is there a
something into Oz? Is it OZ?
Poker games and something
parties, famous people, something,
being at a party with famous people. The Oz is an or being a party with famous people. You are awesome. Stay well. Brian McCarthy is his name.
Okay, that's a
Brian.
nice letter.
You are awesome.
Yeah.
BMAC, welcome to the show, baby. Yeah, thank you for the 100. Appreciate that. And in honor of BMAC's 100, I have a major announcement, and I haven't even told Kim about this. So,
a major announcement from the Mark Thompson Show. A major announcement.
For those who have been on the show and been with us for a while, you know, and you've probably grown attached to this thing. But it's time that you say goodbye to these credibility glasses.
What?
Yes, I know.
What?
I know. But they're replaced by these credibility glasses. Yes, thank you. I have new credibility glasses, everyone. I have to get used to them. They're a little different.
They're red.
I expect some blowback. They're actually orange, but do they read red?
Oh, they kind of look orangey red to me, yeah. The other ones were black.
The other ones were just a clear kind of. Yeah, you're the other
They had
ones.
black frames. They came with a sense of authority. I don't know.
Kim doesn't.
I'm not sure how I feel about these. These read, I'm a fun guy. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, I could always, we'll see. Nice glasses, says Karen Cooper. Why can't I get a little more Karen Cooper in this show instead of a little chit? Always with the chit, Kim. You can't say anything nice. You know what I mean? I don't go after you. You know what I mean? But you come after me every single day.
I blame you. Yeah. Bring these new glasses on me, and you expect me to accept that they're the credibility glasses, like right off the bat.
They are. They're good. Well, anyway, you're going to get used to them. You're going to like them, and you're going to enjoy. They match my hair color exactly, orange, right? They look great with the jacket. Thank you, Jolly Ranch. I need more Jolly Ranch. I need more Karen. Stephen says they increase your credibility. Stephen Michaels. I need more Stephen Michaels. Anyway, that's the big credibility plus 10%, says Quesadilla, and in a super chat. Thank you, Quesadilla. Big shout out. And lastly, I'll just mention this: the Born to Peacefully Resist T-shirts. There are a bunch of them. They are there at your new glasses are incredible, says Trevor Starr. Thank you. Not softens your face, says Rebecca B. Thank you. These T-shirts are just the one I'm wearing is just one of them. There's a whole line. Tony will probably get the getmarkmerch.com website up for you, and you can see a few more. But the bottom line is Courtney's working to design more. There are many different kinds of design. There's sort of ladies-oriented tees. There are more masculine tees. But more to the point, the message is good. It's one of peaceful resistance, which is always the way to go. I like this one because it's got that sun. You know, I just like the sun. You can get it all at getmarkmerch.com. There's other merch stuff, too, which is kind of fun. And you will, I think, find it kind of a fun site to just knock around on. So that's getmarkmerch.com. Will there be an eyeglass line? Asked Champagne Wish.
What?
No, there will not. But Jolly Ranch, who is one of my favorite new handles. I haven't seen anything from Jolly Ranch before, but I'm excited. The Jolly Ranch is throwing us a $20 super chat with a love the show.
Big shout out.
Again, I need a little more Jolly Ranch in my life. You know what I'm saying? Make me feel good for the little girl inside me that needs to be encouraged.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you, Jolly Ranch. Kim rides me like a rented mule. I don't get it. I don't understand it.
That's a little severe.
Yeah, exactly. It is a little severe. I love how Kim gives you a hard time, Mark. You look great, says Nancy. Well, you see, I think you're playing to an audience.
I think you
there.
do look nice. I'm getting used to it. It just like for that moment, it was like all of a sudden they were credibility classes. I felt like I get on board or go home, and I wasn't sure what to do there.
Mark, love the glasses, says Vilma. Thank you very much. So I'm excited that you're all here. We've got a lot to get to, so without any further delay, although we adore delaying, let's get started.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Kind of a weird story. I know everybody wants to talk about Charlie Kirk and the aftermath and the investigation and all that. We will get to all of that. But it's sort of a weird story that there was a bomb under a news van in Utah. You know, the world of media has descended on Utah because of the Charlie Kirk story. And apparently there was a bomb not detonated, but nonetheless shows up under this news vehicle. Bomb squads responding Friday. Suspicious device found under the vehicle parked near an occupied building. Investigators determined the bomb had been lit. This is a quote. Had been lit, but failed to function as designed. The FBI identifying 2 suspects and serving a search warrant at a home in the neighborhood west of the city's downtown. 2 men, ages 58 and 31, were arrested and could face charges related to weapons possession and threats of terrorism. Yeah. 58 and 31. It's great that all demographics are getting in on the terror. And I'll mention that Berkeley, liberal Berkeley, you know the libs at Berkeley and Libbyville. At Cal, on Friday after we went off the air, the word came that they are going to provide information on 160 faculty members and students to the current administration, the Trump administration. It's part of a federal investigation into, quote, alleged incidents of anti-Semitism. This happens, as you know, across the spectrum of academic institutions, big crackdowns in all of these different places. You know, the celebrated versions are Columbia and Harvard, but it goes well beyond, and you can see Cal. The Office of the President of University of California saying that the institution is subject to oversight by federal and state agencies and that its campuses, like UC Berkeley, quote, routinely receive document requests in connection with government audits, compliance reviews, or investigations. Trump, of course, has threatened federal funding cuts for universities that don't cooperate and over the pro-Palestinian student protests. What's that, Kim?
That doesn't seem routine. Handing over the names of a bunch of students. That's not routine.
Yeah.
Come on.
These are professors and those involved in all of this stuff. The other thing that I just will mention to you again, and then I will get deeper into the Kirk thing, is that the unquestioned, demonstrable nature, and I mean, it's both unquestionable, it's been demonstrated in court. There have been court judgments against Bayer. Bayer is the company, the corporation that is part of the pesticide group that includes Roundup. Okay, so they have this this Roundup weed killer, right? And it causes cancer. Okay, again, that is a demonstrated fact. It's been ruled in multiple court cases. There have been thousands of lawsuits about this. Now, the GOP-controlled Congress could deliver Bayer and Roundup and these cancer-causing pesticides a huge gift. there is a proposal tucked into government spending that could shield Bayer and other pesticides makers from billions of dollars in payout to plaintiffs. The proposal follows intense lobbying by Bayer and other industry interests over the past year. But, and this is sort of the interesting part, I think, it has gotten pushback from the MAHA people, you know, the Make America Healthy Again people.
Mm-hmm.
There are tensions, it's suggested here, between President Trump's political base over the pesticides in the nation's food supply, and then they flare this month, they say, these tensions, after RFK Jr. releases a report on childhood health that disappointed a lot of MAHA activists who felt it didn't go far enough to rein in pesticides. This is something that is pointed to as perhaps something that will show up in the midterms as people become disenchanted, realizing that RFK Jr. is just a toady like everybody else. He just wants to be in charge of stuff. He puts all of his people in there, and then this obvious cancer agent is somehow greenlit. And so we take another step back in America's health. If Republican lawmakers vote for the spending bill in its current form, quote, they are going to face the wrath of MAHA in the midterm elections. Among these influencers, the key ingredient in certain formulations of Roundup is so singularly spurned, as it should be, I might add, that there is an activist named Kelly Ryerson who's called the glyphosate girl. Glyphosate is the key ingredient, right, in this Roundup. She's called the glyphosate girl on social media, and she's urged nearly 84,000 Instagram followers to call lawmakers about this proposal. So, giving immunity to chemical manufacturers, she said, that's insanity. And I think a lot of these Republican congresspeople don't really even understand what the language means because they're being sold a bag of goods from Bayer. And again, this industry-friendly provision, which basically does bulletproof Bayer from all of these different judgments, it was introduced and slipped into this latest spending bill. We'll see what happens. The spending bill is something we can talk about with Gary Dietrich as well. But that's just, again, just a story that jumped out at me. Just because, once again, you're seeing things revisited that sort of were long since decided upon. So, now, the latest on the Charlie Kirk investigation, I will...
The Mark Thompson Show.
I will say that the investigative part of the Charlie Kirk story and the assassin is filled with all of these different pieces of information, some of which are not in any way tethered to fact. Others are, and there is such a mishmash of both that you're seeing a lot of public officials essentially, and I include the governor of Utah, who's been very out there. You know, he's on the weekend shows. I think there's sort of a regurgitation sometimes of what is a narrative that has been laid over the assassin's history, motives, etc. So, what's the state of the state? Tony, go ahead.
Overnight, a tribute in the nation's capital for Charlie Kirk. The public, Congress, and the Trump administration gathering at the Kennedy Center.
We were soulmates, we were spiritual brothers, and we were friends.
On Meet the Press, Utah Governor Spencer Cox saying Kirk's suspected assassin Tyler Robinson is not cooperating so far. The governor revealing investigators have interviewed family members and those familiar with the suspect, including his roommate, a male transitioning to a female, who they believe is the 22-year-old's romantic partner.
This person did not have any knowledge, was shocked when they found out about it.
One federal official telling NBC News there's not a solid understanding of whether there's any connection between that relationship and the shooting. The conservative activist was openly critical of transgender people and trans rights.
You're at war with your own biology.
Investigators have yet to determine a motive. Governor Cox says while the suspect comes from a conservative family, he had a leftist ideology and had told a family member he did not like Kirk or his viewpoints. President Trump weighing in overnight.
You can stop for a second, Tony. I don't mean to interrupt, but you can, we can go back a little bit and so you can hear that part again. But I this is what I'm talking about when I say, he didn't like Kirk or his viewpoints. I mean, no kidding. You know what I mean? He murdered him. I mean, I think there's a marriage of, we're not really sure what his ideology is yet, but we have married the left-wing ideology, maybe he is representing a left-wing ideology, with an anger at Kirk. We're also folding in somebody who's going through a transition who apparently is a romantic relationship with. We're not quite sure. There's a lot of the information here that feels extremely tentative and based on hearsay. You've just heard, in fact, the piece started with the fact that the suspect, as he's now termed, is not being cooperative. So we don't really know anything even from firsthand knowledge in conversations with the suspect. We're hearing from family members, we're hearing from friends. I get it, that's how an investigation works, but I'm just suggesting that the conclusions that are being reached, even in this piece, reflect a kind of conclusions that are being reached by many others. Yeah, go ahead, Tony, continue.
And had told a family member he did not like Kirk or his viewpoints. President Trump weighing in overnight.
The problem we have is on the left. They're already under major investigation. A lot of the people that you would traditionally say are on the left.
But some in Washington noting the recent spate of political violence has affected both parties, with a Democratic lawmaker and her husband killed in Minnesota, and Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's house targeted this year. Senator Mark Kelly, a Democrat, whose wife Gabby Giffords survived a shooting in 2011, speaking out.
This isn't like one party committing all the violence against the other. I mean, this is clearly a pervasive issue in our country.
It comes as new details about the day of the shooting have been uncovered, including videos which appear to capture the suspect's movements hours before he arrived at the college campus. Kirk's widow, Erica, speaking out for the first time just days after the shooting.
You have no idea what you just have unleashed across this entire country.
And with Tyler Robinson expected to be formally charged tomorrow, we've learned that Turning Point USA, this conservative organization that Kirk helped co-found, is planning a massive memorial for next Sunday. It will be at the stadium where the Arizona Cardinals played, and President Trump has confirmed he will be there. In the meantime, today, Vice President J.D. Vance says he'll be hosting Charlie Kirk's show.
Yeah, so J.D. Vance is hosting the Charlie Kirk show, and that is the kind of the new America, where you have a significant political figure. I mean, Charlie Kirk, as I say, we went through it that day after his murder. I went through the relevance of Turning Point USA, particularly when you talk about the victory of Donald Trump. I mean, I talked about the relevance of Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA in comparison to like the Joe Rogan manosphere, the bro down. And I think you can argue, and especially I think as an enduring political force, that Charlie Kirk and Turning Point far more powerful than Joe Rogan. I mean, I don't know the percentages, but I definitely would say that what you have in Kirk is the mobilization of young people with a political ideology that is extreme, but it's not even as extreme as like the Nick Fuenteses of the world, who are white nationalists and have an even more intense and radical view of an American future. So I get that so many in Washington, particularly on the GOP side, have rallied around Charlie Kirk, and they've lionized Charlie Kirk, and they have created vehicles essentially for the devotees of Charlie Kirk's words and movement to mourn his passing and his murder. It's absolutely reprehensible. It's horrifying. It's frankly, it's surprising. Surprising, and I say that because his his appearance on college campuses and appearance in all these forums was something he regularly did. I mean, there was security set up. You'll see that, I'm sure you've seen them. They're on Instagram. They're on, like, look at this guy to his right. He's going like this, and he's going like that, and he's going like and then he pulls back, and you can see another guy raise there's sort of these conspiracy theorists that are growing up around the Kirk specifics when it comes to who's there and what they were doing. Those people around him are his security people, and they're really well trained, from what I understand and what I've read. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm surprised that this area wasn't more secure, just on a basic logistical sense of things. But that said, it does appear that this period of unrest and violence in America and in American politics is something that is picking up momentum. I would have liked to have seen the same sort of heartbreak expressed for the Kirk family, for his wife, for his kids, expressed for the families of those who were shot in Minnesota, the legislators there. I mean, I just think that there is an imbalance. But whatever. I mean, we understand that everything is quite arch. I got a note from a guy I know who I think represents sort of a right-wing perspective on many issues. And he said, Mark, when you were listing all of the things, all the other political violence, you mentioned Josh Shapiro's home and the flames that engulfed that house as a result of a Trump supporter and right-wing supporter torching that house. And in truth, it wasn't a Trump supporter. It was a supporter of Palestinian rights, and that's why, at least the motive that was expressed, that's why that house was burned. So I said, I'll apologize. Okay, you're right. The Josh Shapiro case, it wasn't a Trump supporter. It was someone from the left expressing anger over policy toward Gaza and Palestine. But be that as it may, it's feeding this assembly line of violence that is scary in America. And when you hear the verbiage associated with how the Charlie Kirk murder will inform things going forward, it's alarming. I mean, we're going to pick up arms and fight back against them. Against them. Who? Now, I understand you're them. If you're those who have articulated this, your them is the left. It's not even clear to me that this guy is a leftist. But even if he is, that's not the only act of political violence that's gone down in America. I mean, the Whitmer conspiracy, kidnapping and killing, these political violent acts go across the spectrum. I mean, we are totally walking past January 6th, where you had all of these Trump supporters descend on Washington, break into the Capitol, beat officers within inches of their lives, and then storm into the Capitol, deface a number of things associated with American democracy and American government, and literally try to derail an election. This is a violent act. And there were pardons issued for all those people. And then there has been a political judicial recrimination process that's been turned on everybody who was associated with getting those criminal convictions. So when I see that Donald Trump says this, if you look at the problem is on the left, it's not on the right, he said. Like some people like to share the right. The problem we have is on the left. And when you look at the agitator, you look at the scum that speaks so badly of our country, the American flag burning all over the place, that's the left, not the right. Trump's comments come after he began blaming the radical left for Charlie Kirk's killing prior to the apprehension of a suspect. And he's continued to disparage the left. Authorities saying that they're still working to identify a motivation for the attack and note The suspected shooter's family members come from a Mormon background, are GOP voters, but say that their son subscribed to a leftist ideology, they think. We'll see. We'll be announcing, Trump said. The left, they're already under investigation. They're already under major investigation.
For what? For being left? For disagreeing with you? Why?
A lot of people that you would traditionally say are on the left, Trump said. They're already under investigation. So...
Well, Nancy Pelosi agrees with you. She appeared in Baltimore, Maryland this morning talking about gun violence. Of course, her house was broken into and her husband smashed with a hammer. The president made jokes about it at the time. But she said, listen, it is, as you said, Mark, what people say, the things, how you say it, and the unpredictable nature of how what people hear. That is the problem. And unless, she said, we really focus in on what is said and how it is said, we're not going to stop this kind of political violence.
Yeah, and it obscures what real facts there are because the media sphere becomes contaminated, essentially, with all of this information that's not really in evidence. Kash Patel, of course, no stranger to total BS. He is coming under criticism. I'll get to Gary in just a second. FBI Director Kash Patel's activities during the investigation of conservative activist Charlie Kirk's assassination, is noted here, raised questions about his decision-making during a crisis. This is from 4 former FBI officials and 2 administration officials. From the shooting Wednesday to a suspect's arrest Friday, Patel took steps that gave pause to some federal and local officials and raised questions about his judgment. It's almost as though he's not qualified to head the FBI, which is exactly what we've been saying since his nomination. His actions range from where Patel was on the evening of the assassination to what a former official described as his grandstanding about his own role after the arrest. Quote, he has heard concerns about how this looks. There are a lot of shaking heads. In an interview on Fox and Friends, which is where the administration goes to get their word out, Patel defended his handling of the investigation. Could I have worded it a little better on social media in the heat of the moment? Sure. But do I regret putting it out? Absolutely not. I was telling the world what the FBI was doing as we were doing it, and I'm continuing to do that. The double down strategy always does work. People love this strength. I challenge anyone out there, he said, to find a director that has been more transparent and more willing to work the media on high-profile cases. Well, I wouldn't deny that when it comes to working the media. His handling of the investigation, it's suggested from a senior former FBI counterterrorism official, suggests that he's got 0 leadership experience and capabilities. Another said, it showcased Patel's public inability to meet the moment as a leader. Yeah. I think that he was at Rayo's in New York while all of this was going on. This is after the shooting in Utah. And it's very hard to get a reservation at Rayo's in New York, and I guess he wanted to follow through.
Yeah.
And so that was the,
Thompson, party of 4.
Yes, that's right. So I know it's a tough res. So anyway, good luck to you, Kash Patel. And that's the latest.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I've waited all weekend to speak to this guy. He is truly brilliant, and I'm sure he'll give us some clarity on a number of different issues, including those that we've just touched on here. He is the political analyst for iHeart Media across the iHeart Radio network and across the CBS television stations as well. How about it for our pal, Gary Dietrich?
Hey, good morning, Mark. And a lot has gone under the bridge since we talked 2 weeks ago, hasn't it, my friend?
Yeah, it does feel, and maybe this is just because, I'm center left, I guess, or whatever however you know, since we're all labeling our positions, maybe it just seems as though we were kind of in a pressure cooker to begin with. I'm not a Trump fan, so everything he does kind of triggers me a little bit. I have to check myself a little bit. That's what I think you're particularly good at. But you know, the political violence that has informed this moment does seem as though it's picking up a kind of momentum that is fed by a discourse in America that is really troubling, and it's coming from the highest places.
Yeah, Mark, I think if there is any commonality in some of this, it seems to be that, okay? And again, just to remind people very quickly, you may have covered this, but I just want to remind people, Charlie Kirk was shot dead last week. We had a Democratic former member of the House in Minnesota and her husband shot dead recently. We had Governor Shapiro, a Democrat in Pennsylvania. He and his family in his house when it was firebombed. They fortunately got out. Nobody hurt. I mean, we can go down the list. Of course, everybody knows about the one bullet fired and another apparent assassination attempt on the current president. I mean, we could go down others. I mean, it is concerning to people, I think, on both sides. We're hearing that. And so now, Mark, of course, you know, you're bringing up, I think, people are trying to drill down a little bit. What do we do, right? How did we get here? And where do we go from here? And I think that one of the things I hope, and it seems like it's coming, is some unanimity on, look, we have got to find ways to talk differently across a panoply of platforms, as you know, Mark, that simply did not exist 10 or 15 years ago. You know, they just did not. I mean, guys like you would talk on broadcasts. We wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't be doing podcasts. We wouldn't be doing streaming. Certainly, we wouldn't be doing social media. And now it's a I don't know. It's a brave new world and a very, very challenging one to try to get, I think, two things, Mark, I would say. Try to get some sense of national commonality in what we hear and think and talk about. I mean, in the old days when it was Uncle Walter Cronkite and a few other guys, you know, Huntley and Brinkley, those names won't mean anything to the younger generation. But when we had 3 or 4 networks sharing this, we all kind of had the same basis of things to talk about. Now, heck, you and I might hear different things for 10 years, right? That's one thing. And the other thing I would say is simply that, sadly, as you know, Mark, for many people, the notion that getting clicks is the almighty, the be-all and end-all, and that doing the most incendiary thing to get those is somehow is worthy, is validated. Those are both problems.
Yeah, it's really great that you touched on that last thing, because it's what I was going to say to you as you were talking about the first thing. The first thing I boiled down a little bit of what you just said to, like, you know, we've all got to keep our heads and we've got to, you know, sort of have a sense of the goal here. We have to work together. We're a nation that can only survive if on some level we work together. But the second thing you said, it really is, I think, so very relevant, because this moment in time is informed by a social media environment that, as you put it, is dependent on clicks. And the algorithm will serve you more extreme views because that produces more clicks. The algorithm wants to make you happy, wants to keep you on the platform, and it knows that some tepid, middle-of-the-road position politically isn't the way to get there. It's the extremism. So you have an amplification of extremism that is built into all of these independent media sources to which you've referred.
Yeah, Mark, you know, this, as you know, has been drilled down on by congressional committees pretty heavily in the last year or two, right? And some accountability trying to be brought, as you know, brought to the heads of some of these major companies. I don't even need to name what they are. You guys all know the alphabet soup. Just sort of talk about one, maybe. And it's problematic. I mean, you know, they'll hem and haw, and they'll, well, we're changing the algorithm, this and that. But of course, they will tell you, well, we can't really tell you how the algorithm works because that's proprietary. Then we'd be giving away our trade secrets. So we're stuck in something of a catch-22 right now, Mark. I consider it more, you'll know this well, being an LA guy, the La Brea tar pits. I mean, you know, where the woolly mammoths went to perish, apparently. You know, and it just seems like we're stuck in this moment, and we've got to get unstuck. I don't think there's any question. I don't think there's any question about that.
Well, what we're seeing by government is the kind of involvement in a lot of these companies, and you can, I guess we can characterize it as keeping them honest, but I would say you've seen in this administration an effort to harass media companies. Again, those are my words, not yours, but I, think the shakedown of ABC, I think CBS falls into the same category. It goes beyond that, because the Googles of the world and these other media platforms of the world that are so influential, they are similarly beginning to cow to the pressure that's coming from an American administration that they really need to stay on the right side of.
Well, it's interesting, though, Mark, to broaden the conversation a little bit. Over the last 4 to 5 years, you've had Democratic, majorities in the House go after the same thing. And you have a lot of, it's really become something of a bipartisan cause celeb now to say, look, we got to do something. I mean, and as you know, Mark, there's a real demographic divide that's really concerning about this. In other words, as much as you and I have loved the major broadcast media for years, and as you know, I'm still very involved in both broadcast television and radio, of course, across our other platforms as well. For the younger generation, that is not their bailiwick. It is not their venue. And so they, and all the research, as you know, shows this well, get the vast majority of their information from their handhelds. And that is, for many, many years, the FCC, love them or hate them, like all their decisions or not, as you know, they policed the broadcast media with the giant threat of their licensure over their heads. And, this is a really big deal. I mean, I've been in some local TV stations where, they had to have the obligatory files over in the GM's filing cabinet, and they came in and looked at those. And I mean, you did run some serious risk. Now it's the wild, wild west. And it is, we've got to find a way somehow to bring some common ground, and I dare say some common sense, because right now it truly, I think most people believe, I don't know how you feel, Mark, that things are truly in some sense out of control.
No, that's kind of what I was saying at the beginning when I was talking about political violence picking up momentum. I'm really glad we're having this conversation, because I think it's really interesting, because what you're talking about, what Gary's speaking of, is the notion, generally anyway, that you somehow keep some sort of regulation akin to like FCC regulation on equal time or whatever it might have been in the old days where you had broadcast entities that were affected, but that you have some sort of governor on the kind of hate speech that is becoming so common across all of these different platforms that are completely unregulated. So they're only regulated by their ownership, by the people who run them. So they can be tweaked up and down. But there aren't any cool heads on the command bridge. And I'm wondering, even with this group having declared, I'm talking about the Trump administration most recently, now we get to the kind of the issue of the day, declared investigations on these leftist groups and really calling the radical left the source of all of these acts of political violence. I mean, really, that's what they've done. They've skipped over some of the stuff that you've talked about, the Minnesota legislators, the Josh Shapiro bombing, whatever it might be. The idea somehow that this administration is going to police is sort of something that objectively can't be viewed as necessarily a positive thing. Or I'll put it this way, they don't seem to be neutral arbiters.
Well, and of course, Mark, to your point, they're not seen as credible arbiters because of that, right? They have an agenda and a perspective, and that's why they can't be seen as truly independent. And this is why, by the way, things like the FCC were created. It was supposed to be and function, I think, in most people's minds fairly well for a number of decades, independent of a political agenda, right? There was a very clear and very specific set of guidelines. I mean, you remember even comedians joking about the 7 words you couldn't say on air. There was all kinds of community standards that were very specifically delineated. And if you did not follow those, you risked losing your actual license to broadcast. And now there is almost nothing. And I have to say, it doesn't really matter. I don't care how free market you are. Only the very, very, very tip of that spectrum of free market folks would contend that there wasn't a purpose for having regulations for railroads, for child labor. You could go down a long list of, you can't let big pharma just police itself and put whatever it wants in a medication. No, the FDA is there for a reason. I mean, you could just go down a list of, yes, I think there's a growing recognition that truly, I'm going to say this again, things are out of control in some real sense, and there's got to be some societal, collective, yes, maybe governmental role as well in all of this.
Well, what's happened across America in different places is that communities are coming together. They realize that government isn't going to be there for them, and there have been real efforts to have communities police themselves, and this can only be done, to some extent on some things. Things like, additives in food and regulation that's related to the financial markets and the environment. And you saw that they no longer are going to require any reporting on greenhouse gases and any kind of pollutants at all from so many of these various factory polluters. I mean, these are giant corporate polluters that no longer need to worry about reporting that to the government. So you've seen the rollback of those regulations. And again, community banding together isn't going to be able to do much there. But you do see that people are, as a collective, taking things into their own hands as best they are able. And that, in a way, is a bad sign. I mean, the idea is, I think, that government represents us. And we've become so disconnected from government, it seems to me, Gary, that we feel as though it doesn't represent us anymore. And the us is significant enough in number that that's of concern.
Mark, I think you're onto something really important. Before I comment on that, I just want to say, as specifically relates to our conversation today about information flow, and particularly to the younger generation, that's why you have, even recently, Governor Hochul in New York saying there's going to be no cell phones in our schools, statewide, right? And you're seeing this in red states and in red school districts as well. I mean, I think there are going to be, to your point, some folks in their communities, in their states, in their regions, certainly taking some matters into their own hands, at least trying some things to make some changes. Now, what you were just commenting on, I think it's a big concern. I mean, I don't really know, what the final solution and answer is. Nobody has been able to really delineate what it is. But I think what we can agree on, and I hope we can agree on, it's not one side's problem, okay? If we can't at least agree that, there were different kinds of people with different kinds of motivations that carried out these acts of violence in the last 18 to 24 months, I don't know where we start.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's true, that once the violence is uncorked and picks up this kind of momentum, people on both sides can be swept in. This is to be continued, obviously. It's interesting to me, and one of the things we touched on, and I mentioned this, I'd love to just get your take on it. In England, over the weekend, there was a massive demonstration there, and this speaks to sort of a rising tide of nativism, perhaps, or of you can tell me, Tony, will you run a little bit for Gary of what happened in Great Britain, and I just wanted to get your take on it, because we were speaking before in sort of broad terms. I haven't really gotten into this in a very specific way. I was making the point that oftentimes these political movements, they occur internationally. We see it all, of course, from the standpoint of the U.S., but there can be these trends politically that can very much conform to things that are going on overseas as well. Here's a little bit of what was happening in England.
It was billed as a march in support of free speech. But in reality, many of the chants and the speeches were protesting against immigration. The British police said over 100,000 people took to the streets, waving the British Union flag and the English flag of St. George.
They need to stop illegal migration into this country. It's tearing us apart.
The organiser was a far-right anti-Islam campaigner who calls himself Tommy Robinson. His real name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon, and he's done time for assault, contempt of court and mortgage fraud. Some of the protesters were also from the far right.
This is our country!
Others said they were just frustrated about immigration and especially asylum seekers. The march follows a summer of small but angry protests outside hotels used by the British government to house asylum seekers. At the weekend march, Elon Musk dialed in with a warning for the British people.
Violence is coming to you. You either fight back or you die.
There was a much smaller counter-demonstration by anti-racism protesters. As the police worked to keep the two groups apart, there were scuffles and several arrests.
So there you have it. I just wanted you to see a little bit. I wanted us all to just dip our toe into that because, as I say, I think it reflects an international trend. Can you speak to it?
Yeah, Mark, and it does tie in with what you said just a few moments ago. We know from all the research, and I mean, from my dear Harvard Kennedy School, their annual survey of youth across all demographics, even internationally, that the belief and confidence in one's own institutions, and those include government, they're kind of across the board. You know, Mark, that has been on the decline, fairly steady decline for the last couple of decades. And that was to your earlier point, and it's true internationally as well. The demographics are not different in places like England, other places in Europe, and other places around the world. And that is a serious concern. Why? Because if you don't have a basic fundamental sort of cooperative sense that, okay, we're all in this together and we're going to create institutions that, you know, bolster the best in us and in our historic beliefs, then you really are sowing the seeds of not only discord, but, you know, in some cases, people would say near anarchy, and first of thought and then of action. And I think that is a growing concern. And it's one that in the West in particular, and I bring this to our attention here on Mondays, is, you know, on a semi-regular basis, you know, that I remind people, you know, you got to be careful when you're circling the covered wagons and start firing inward, because there's very major challenges and threats globally and internationally that the West and the U.S. in particular, and our population needs to be very aware of. And this is not to be alarmist. It's not to be in any way ethnocentric. It's simply the facts. And, you know, we've talked about some of these, Mark, and I think it's very important for us as Americans to say, look, we got to find some common ground, because we do need, in some sense, to continue to stand together and hold one another accountable as well as hold one another up.
I mean, the rhetoric at the top is pretty scary, though, Gary. I mean, the idea that somehow it's all the left and these radical leftists are ruining America, right, and the left is behind all the violence, the left is behind all our problems. I mean, that's pretty scary, and it's coming from the highest levels of this administration. Yeah, right, and it's not accurate. I mean, I try to make this, you know, just abundantly clear when people hear me, you know, doesn't matter what platform I'm on, that, you know, I'm going to, as you know, Mark, hold people accountable appropriately. There's not going to be an agenda on my part. And that statement by the president, of course, was not accurate. It is not all about the left. It is, I mean, and we've just already talked about that today. There are examples one can cite from the facts just in the last 24 months of provocations, of exaggerations, of denigration, of violence on both sides. And that's the facts, and there's no getting around that. What's the latest on redistricting, in your view? Just give us a sense for the midterms, the redistricting, the redrawing of maps in Texas and California, et cetera.
Well, it's growing by leaps and bounds. We know, of course, about Texas and California. The next big shoe to drop in terms of numerically on that, as you know, Mark, comes 7 weeks from tomorrow, when Californians will vote on, you know, the governor and the legislature's plan to have a mid-decade redistricting in California. It's a big deal. They just came out over the weekend. There's going to be $281 million, they're estimating, spent just to hold the election. I'm guessing at least that much or more spent on the election by both sides. So you're talking over $500 million going to drop, and already is beginning to drop in the next 2 months. But now you're seeing the momentum pick up. Missouri is about ready to make a change in their maps that could pick up one red seat. But now you've got Kansas, Illinois on the Democratic side. You got Florida in process down there. So you've got at least a half a dozen more states, Mark, to answer your question more specifically, that are going to roll out, it looks like, some form of mid-decade redistricting before next year's midterm election.
So you'll have to tell us, as you follow the bouncing ball, when it all settles, when that last bit of dust settles, how the map could look. In other words, how the numbers actually could look.
Yeah, right. And again, a reminder that this is done state by state. So that's why people get confused. Why these 7 or 8 states and nobody else? Because it's a state by state process. And secondly, a reminder that just because you gerrymander doesn't guarantee you're going to pick up those seats. So much is happening. I mean, on a daily basis, as you know, Mark, that the actual sort of polling map, who's likely to win next November, that is in 26, we are a long, long ways from being able to determine that.
Yeah, it's fascinating too. Then let's face it. I mean, they took this genie out of the bottle mid-decade, right? I mean, this was a move on the part of the Texans to do something that really isn't typically done. And now the party's on, yes?
Yeah, the party by both parties is on. If you want to call it a party, I think most people, the American people, would go, no, this ain't no party, friends.
No,
this is the last kind of garbage we want to deal with. But the facts are, Mark, and there's no getting around this either, there's a lot of people with stakes in 2028. The governor of California, governor of Illinois, Republicans, Democrats, etc., who have a lot of, let's just call it, personal political self-interest in how this turns out.
Gary, so appreciate our conversation. I think these are darker times than I've seen. And really, I mean, I was a kid, when the political violence that was that took over America, in the 60s hit. And it wasn't just the assassinations of MLK and RFK and JFK. It was cities set on fire. It was a really dark decade, the 60s. And from it, that crucible of horror, came some good things, civil rights and things that really seemed as though we were going to get to a better place after all of it. And now it seems as though we've kind of regressed, and it's scary. It's a bit scary, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, I was reminded my own alma mater, UC Santa Barbara. People may not know this. The Bank of America was burned to the ground by students. And Ronald Reagan famously said in the National Guard then, I mean, it's a long history, Mark. And I don't know if I've shared this, so maybe I can end with this. My own personal journey in politics began at our black and white TV set in our living room. The oldest political memory I have is of watching the JFK funeral procession. When I realized how important politics was, is when I looked over at my dad and he was crying as a World War II vet, who was a Republican, by the way, but watching our Democratic president's funeral procession touched him deeply. And that's when I realized, oh, wow, this political arena is really important.
Yeah, and that speaks also to that inflection moment, that political violence that touched your father the way it did, even as he came from a different political perspective than perhaps the president who was killed. So appreciate you, pal. Thank you so much. Look forward to
Thanks, Mark. Have a great
Gary
show.
Dietrich, everybody. Yeah. And Gary is brought to us by the generosity of Bill Campbell. He's at Remax Gold. So if you're relocating in to or from Northern California, you want a highly respected real estate professional, Bill Campbell, Remax Gold, you can call or text him, 530-448-7474, 530-448-7474. It's Bill Campbell of Remax Gold.
The Mark Thompson Show.
It was great. I loved it.
How would you handle this? We could try ignoring it, sir.
Morning.
You cannot say you love your country.
Where are my weed smokers at? Stay at home and get baked.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I am disturbed by this that I see in the comment section from Trevor Starr in Hollywood. Sandy is responding to somebody in the chat. Mark never uses the drops I send him, so I stopped sending them. Well, Trevor, First of all, thank you for all the drops you've sent in the past. Although the statute of limitations on your kindness in sending all those drops is pretty well running out. So,
What?
I mean, it's time for you to step up, Trevor Starr in Hollywood, and do something else. Do something else for the show. But I called out for the chill drop. I forget what it was. A couple of weeks ago, it was in Florida maybe. Somebody said I was just chilling or something. And I think that would be a good drop. And I said, Trevor, maybe you can get it. Thought I said that anyway. And when it didn't come in, I knew that I'd lost my Trevor forever. It was a sad, sad tale. But anyway, Trevor, get back on the drop train. But you can't send me 70 drops and expect me to integrate them. We're very specific about the drops we use. Isn't that right, Tony? I think we're specific about the...
Who is having that conversation?
Well, it's...
Morning.
Anyway, this is the one he likes. So.
That's pure speculation.
All right. Now, I've got Kim's news, and I've got a lot of other stuff to get to. Man, I truly... there's so much going on in America right now. I'm glad we got to a bunch of it with Gary. And I also, I think there's a darkness about things right now, and I'm trying to find the light, or also trying to find the strategy toward the light. And yet I'm also trying not to ignore so many things that are important. So anyway, so in keeping with the general energy of the show, I don't know about this. I'm just looking at this. CC Ryder says, Democrats and operatives are brainwashed and conditioned to always accept partial responsibility for behavior on the right. The behavior needs to be unwound. Grenache says, Mark and Kim, I couldn't help but notice all the pushback on Gary's appeasement to the right today. I don't know if I thought actually, it's interesting you say this, because I thought Gary was quite critical and not accepting of what is being said by the president and by the current administration. That was my take on it. In fact, I kind of noted that, because Gary usually kind of repositions me and says, look, this has happened this way, it's happened under this administration, it's happened, he kind of tries to recalibrate some of my anger, some of my outrage, some of my reprehension about things. And yet I found him today to be unequivocally condemning what was coming from this administration, blaming the left. So it's very interesting. I mean, I got a completely different notion about that conversation than you did. So I don't know. Anybody watching the Charlie Sheen documentary? On Netflix, there's this documentary about Charlie Sheen. He was, man, that guy lived hard. And I think he's cleaned up his act now, but I'm mentioning it to you because you might find it a useful distraction. Yeah, a lot of the interview and a lot of what he talks about takes place right there in this diner, which is really kind of interesting just as a setting. But you forget what a train wreck this guy's life was. And I'll tell you something else that I didn't know. I mean, I had a general sense of it. But this guy grew up, Charlie Sheen did, with the greatest opportunities one could ever want. He grew up in Malibu, the son of a star, Martin Sheen. He was handsome, Charlie Sheen. He was from a family that was supportive. And he became a star so early in his life that he could live large right away. And they got wrapped up with the Heidi Fleiss thing, which honestly, I just had forgotten all of this stuff. And you get, they have his drug dealer in the, among those people that he talks to. I mean, imagine that. His drug dealer seemed like this nice guy. I mean, it's just a very, I think, interesting, and that's his
drug
brother.
dealers say. I told him you were getting a little too into that cocaine, Charlie.
Well, and his drug dealer said, I was kind of caught because I was making so much money just going there and hanging out with him. And he said, I don't know. That's his drug dealer on the right. Thank you. If you're watching on YouTube. He said, I don't know how he did as much as he did. It was so much in the way of drugs. He said, it would have killed anybody else. Somehow he was able to do it. He had this constitution that was able to take it.
Didn't his dad live to like a really old age?
His dad's still alive, Martin Sheen.
Is he? Okay.
Isn't he? I'm pretty sure he is.
Perhaps. I Google it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a Googleable thing. But I'm pretty sure Martin Sheen.
Google it.
He played the president in The West Wing, you know. That's Martin Sheen.
Yeah, he's still alive.
He's 85. Yeah. And he is in the documentary because he was quite vocal at the time that a lot of crazy stuff was happening with Charlie Sheen. But he did not agree to sit down and be part of the documentary per se. In other words, there's no interview with either him or I believe one of the brothers isn't part of it either. They note specifically who isn't, you know, who declined to be
Emilio?
part of it. Who's the Emilio Estevez and so I mean Sean Penn is they talked to him in the interview, and I mean these guys all grew up together in Malibu. Yeah, they were like these Malibu kids. I mean, guys, it's the kind of life one can only imagine. This is just idyllic existence. It was just insanely terrific. I mean, imagine looking like this incredibly handsome guy and being cast in these films and being good. I mean, Charlie Sheen was a good actor.
Yeah.
And he acted comedy very well. And 2.5 Men was terrific. And then they talked to Chuck Lorre, and so who's the creator of 2.5 Men. Anyway, we still have we have about 40 minutes still to go on it. It's 2 parts, but it's a good watch, man.
Didn't it get to the point with 2.5 Men where they actually couldn't do the show because he would come all like, you know, zonked out on drugs, and he was jittery and like crazy and saying weird things, and they just had to stop? Exactly.
They get to that. They get to that in the 2nd episode. And John Cryer, they do speak to him, and he's really great. I mean, he speaks very, I think, generously and thoroughly about what was going on. Like in an unvarnished way, John Cryer talks about what was going on, but he doesn't like take any cheap shots or whatever. He just speaks openly and honestly about it. No, I don't play poker with Sheen. I don't think he plays poker. He's too busy doing 8 balls or whatever they call it. Yeah, he can't. I can't see the cards with all this cocaine on the table. That's the problem, you know.
And he's gone through wives, like wife after wife after wife.
Yeah, I don't know what this is right, exactly. You see how his life is, you know, was this train wreck. Quesadilla says, terrific. He has it's horrible parading his drug dealer around after infecting people with AIDS. Well, I haven't gotten to that part, like who he infected with AIDS. Maybe you can help me with that. I'm literally just relating the documentary. It's definitely, I just said it. The guy's life was a train wreck. You see it over and over, but you see how he had so much going for him, and yet, you know, it clearly was. It was doomed to failure. I mean, he was definitely someone who, John Cryer and Charlie Sheen had a pretty good chemistry on that show. Oh, yeah, says John Watson. Cryer is a brilliant comedy. He's a brilliant actor, but he's a brilliant comic actor, you know. I mean, I've watched John Cryer on different shows, and like with a critical eye, I've watched him, and I go, man, that's just so good, the way he takes an extra beat somewhere before he turns. Or
do you call him up afterwards and say, hey, I really like the way you did this?
No, I'm telling you this. I've never told him that. But I mean, I think he doesn't need to hear it from me. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that, you know, he doesn't punch a joke like that. You could be tempted to punch a punchline or whatever. He's just, I think he's so gifted. Yeah, and that's Lisa Joyner, his wife. And they are just wonderful people. But anyway, that's right, I forgot. We did the show from John Cryer's house one day. Remember the internet went down and I had to run to somebody's house and we went to John Cryer's house and did the show. Yeah. But anyway, he's great in this documentary. The documentary has all of these different people contributing in the way of interviews, but obviously Cryer was part of that 2.5 Men thing. And it's just insane that his life came so completely unspooled. Unreal. So I recommend it. We're just in the middle of it. All right, smash the like button. I know we've done a lot of stuff today. That was a little digression, so we get away from the
with your iron rod.
The politics of the moment. Kim's news, and we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. FBI Director Kash Patel says Charlie Kirk's alleged shooter texted his plan to take out the conservative activist. Patel said the suspect, 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, sent someone a text before the attack saying he was going to do it because he hated what Kirk stood for. When asked why the person who received that text didn't say anything, Patel said the investigation is ongoing.
Yeah, Patel, I wonder, is that something that you actually, Kash Patel, found in FBI investigation, or is that something that you heard somebody say and then you repeat it or put it on social media? Kash Patel, you are a total abject failure. You ought to turn in that jacket, turn in your credentials, and go back to doing what you did and were good at, and that is podcasting and sucking up to Donald Trump by writing children's books.
Vice President J.D. Vance hosting the latest episode of Charlie Kirk's podcast, paying tribute to the conservative activist. On today's edition of the Charlie Kirk Show, Vance praised Kirk as a visionary and a luminary who created a whole social network for an entire generation of young people. Of course, Vance escorted Kirk's casket back to his home state of Arizona aboard Air Force Two last week. This was it almost seemed like a photo op, and I know there's video of it somewhere, Tony, but Republican Senator Ted Cruz of Texas says the Department of Transportation in his home state is well aware, there it is, yeah, you're fast, Tony, well aware that he took action involving some graffiti next to a Houston highway. Someone apparently had spray painted some obscene message about Kirk, and Cruz took it upon himself to paint over the graffiti with some white paint. He has ripped it to the side of the road, got out there, painted over it in his suit. Look at him. There he is, painting it over. It was kind of a photo op, and the short videos all over the place.
Oh, there's that's what it starts with the man in the mirror, everybody. You don't like what's out there, you can I don't know. It was a viral moment, I suppose.
Well, so much for freedom of speech. A UCLA employee is on leave after posting comments about Charlie Kirk. The social media comment by the employee said, "You can't force people to mourn someone who hated us, and it's okay to be happy when someone who hated you and called for your people's death dies." UCLA says it condemns in the strongest possible terms comments made by its employee on their personal social media account, adding comments that celebrate or condone violence will be inconsistent with their core values, and the university has launched an investigation. The drone pilot who admits to damaging a super scooper during the Palisades fire set to be sentenced today. Peter Ackman pleaded guilty to a federal Class A misdemeanor for the unsafe operation of an unmanned aircraft. The collision with a drone put the 3-by-6-inch gash on the plane's wing, taking it out of commission for several days, crucial days, along with agreeing
during the fires, exactly.
Along with agreeing to pay full restitution to the government of Quebec, which supplied the plane, and 150 hours of community service in support of the wildfire relief effort. Ackman also faces up to a year in prison for that drone incident.
Good day, sir.
President Trump bringing back his threat to federalize police in the nation's capital. The president's 30-day takeover expired last week, but Trump is suggesting he's open to federalizing the department again if it does not cooperate with ICE operations. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser voiced concerns the administration that their immigration enforcement operations are causing residents to live in fear. Romania says it scrambled a couple of fighter jets over the weekend after Russian drones violated its airspace. Came less than a week after Russian drones violated Polish airspace, another NATO country. Romania summoned the Russian ambassador after the incident, while the European Union called the airspace incursion a reckless escalation.
Well, it's definitely getting more tense over there without question. Yeah, and this is increasingly these incursions into NATO airspace. I mean, there at some point, it's a provocation that's going to get some kind of response that that could escalate easily. I mean, it's definitely we're feeling the instability of both the alliances and also the peace, if you will. I mean, since there's already a war raging in Ukraine and Russia, and the spillover could easily happen.
I mean, they must know they're doing it. You would think wouldn't be so hard to control a drone. I've never flown one, but I mean, you would think that they would know that they're dipping into someone else's airspace when they do it. I don't know.
I mean, again, I would agree. I mean, that's the whole idea of a drone, is that you program its course and you can guide its course, right? But I don't know what happened in this specific instance.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is indicating that a TikTok deal is close. Bessent confirming there's a framework for a TikTok deal. It's not like a framework.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
you have concepts about. Do you have a plan for the Mark Thompson show? No, what is that?
Concepts of a plan.
We have concepts of.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan.
I have concepts of a plan.
That's it, right? So
there's a framework for a TikTok deal. Yeah,
that's
this
good.
After trade talks between China and the U.S. took place in Madrid today. Bessent says,
I have concepts of a plan.
He says President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping will talk on Friday to complete all the details.
Do you want to play Trump speaking about that, Tony? This is a Trump talking about TikTok and the likely.
I may or may not. They're negotiating TikTok right now. We may let it die, or we may, I don't know, it depends. Up to China. It doesn't matter too much. I'd like to do it for the kids. They like it. I mean, selfishly speaking, I did very well on TikTok, and I got the youth vote. I got numbers that nobody's ever even come close to in the Republican Party. Nobody. You look back to Romney and all these people, they got practically no votes. I got a lot. And some was attributed to TikTok, and a lot was attributed to Charlie.
Yeah, so that is true, what he's saying. TikTok and social media did help animate Trump's rise to power. And I'd say X was probably the biggest platform for him, but maybe it was TikTok. TikTok's a bigger platform than X. I think that the future of TikTok is interesting from the standpoint of content, because they're already taking down all the political content and all the news content from TikTok. It's an extraordinary thing that's happening. So my friends who spend a lot of time on TikTok tell me that it's just completely different. It's going to be completely different. They're going to take away all the politics and all the news. And so TikTok will be, a husk of what it was. Now, it'll be likely, this is what I thought was going to happen, it'll be turned over as a gift almost in a fire sale sort of way to friend of Trump. Fill in, it might be Jared Kushner's brother who's circled it. There are a bunch of those tech bros who are the Billionaire Boys Club that is part of the dinners that Trump has and just had one last week or the week before. I mean, you can gift TikTok to a consortium of these type players, and then they can mess with it the way they want to. But I think that's the likely outcome with TikTok. But already is my point. They have radically changed what TikTok is. So no longer will you be able to go there for politics or news or the proprietary algorithm that made TikTok so popular.
The interest rate cuts that President Trump has been asking for may be on their way. The Federal Reserve is indicating that it will announce a rate cut this week following a series of poor jobs reports. Trump has been going after Fed Chair Jerome Powell, referring to him as too late Powell for his refusal to cut rates. New York Governor Kathy Hochul's move to endorse Zohran Mamdani for New York City mayor, drawing some criticism from President Trump. President calling Hochul's endorsement of the Democratic Socialist a rather shocking development and a very bad one for New York City. Hochul announcing her support for Mamdani with a New York Times op-ed where she praised his affordability platform and also indicated she does not agree with all of the state assembly members' goals. The Trump administration is redirecting millions in funding to historically Black colleges and universities. Secretary of Education Linda McMahon said the department was redirecting financial support away from ineffective discriminatory programs toward those which support student access. The redirected funds were gifted and talented programs and initiatives that support minority students in science and engineering. The nearly $500 million boost, coupled with an extra $137 million for American history and civics education, as well as $60 million for charter schools. Many people have diabetes, but might not know they have it. That according to some new data published in the Lancet Diabetes and Endocrinology, which shows 44% of people 15 years or older who have diabetes are undiagnosed. Researchers looked over data from more than 200 countries from the year 2000 to 2023 for their study. More than 10% of people worldwide have diabetes, they say. At the movies, Demon Slayer Infinity Castle is ruling the box office. That after an historic opening weekend, the Japanese anime movie enjoyed a $70 million opening weekend in North America, the biggest domestic opening ever for an anime film. It beat out The Conjuring: Last Rites, which earned over $25 million.
I mean, it's pretty big news when an anime film is the top movie at the box office, don't you think?
Yeah.
A Japanese anime film? I mean, I think that's, yeah, you know.
$70 million in its opening weekend.
It was advertised all over Comic-Con this year. It had the whole building, the Marriott building. It was going to be a big deal this week.
I see. Okay.
Big deal.
If you're looking for a happy place, maybe you're not finding it at the anime movie, but if you're looking for a happy place, you will find it in the state of Hawaii. Aloha, everybody. Finance website Wallet Hub comparing all 50 states to determine which was the happiest based on more than 24 key metrics. They included income growth, unemployment, depression rates, and Hawaii was ranked the happiest state. It was followed by Maryland, Nebraska, New Jersey, and Connecticut. On the opposite end of the list, West Virginia came in last. Aren't they really close, West Virginia and Maryland,
not, I mean, general proximity, but I wouldn't say. But it is interesting because I always think West Virginia, the mountains, Blue Ridge Mountains, I think West Virginia is stunningly beautiful. I'm surprised by that.
Not beautiful like Hawaii. I mean, look at that.
Well, I mean, look at that. That's really pretty. It's a different kind of beautiful. I mean, West Virginia's gorgeous. It's interesting to me that it comes in at the bottom, but I mean, Hawaii is just. I mean, it's magical. It's look at that. It's just. You were there. Now, give me the story on you again in Hawaii. You grew up there?
No, I was born there.
Mm-hmm. But how long were you there?
Not very long. My parents moved back to California when I was 2, but then we went back every year.
I see. Because you had family there? Or
no, but it just became a special place for our family. I got married there. So I just really love it.
I love how connected you are to it. I was just forgetting exactly.
Yeah.
West Virginia is extremely poor, says Colleen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I suppose there's that.
That's why you see Diamond Head there in the background.
Oh, that's so pretty. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, this report is sponsored by...
Wait a minute. Listen to this. Problems in... There could be trouble in paradise.
If you're a
Phineas J.
Howley.
Whoopi says, Mark, I disagree. Hawaii is not paradise if you're a Howley. A Howley means you're coming from the mainland, right?
Yeah, well, it means you're a white person.
White person? Yeah. Is that, I've never noticed that. Of course, I've always stayed at pretty nice places. I don't know. But, well.
There are parts of Hawaii that, when you're, even on Oahu, if you drive to the other side of the island, you start seeing these signs like Howley Go Home, or, there's also some real anger about having their for people of Hawaiian descent.
Yeah, it's that
having
culture,
their homeland taken away.
Of course.
What we did to Hawaii and imprisoning their monarch.
Go
and
home,
their
Holly.
land.
Look at that. There it is. Wow.
Yeah. When you start seeing that, you're in the wrong place. Turn it back and go back to your resort. You're not. They don't want you over there.
I am corrected. Maryland is close to West Virginia. They share a border, says Nullifity.
I stand corrected.
I stand corrected.
I thought that because, if you're, you always hear if you're in Washington, D.C., a lot of people live in Maryland or West Virginia because it's all very close there.
A lot of people live in Maryland or Virginia. Pull up the map for me, Tony. On,
Did I get it wrong?
If you would. No, I'm sure you're right. I don't know. I'm wondering why I don't consider it.
I misspoke.
Okay, let me get the map.
It just
up
struck me as odd that they're so close, and one's the happiest, and one's or the second happiest, and one's the saddest.
Yeah, exactly. It's really I don't know.
What's so different about those two states that are so
My
close
words
together?
affect so many people.
I don't know. Anyway, I've been corrected, and there's West Virginia, and there's Virginia, and it's true. I guess the northeastern part of it does, Maryland. Anyway, there you go. All right, good stuff. Thank you.
Yeah. This report sponsored by Coachella Valley Coffee. It doesn't matter what state you live in. You take a sip of this stuff, automatically, it's a happy day. Yeah, CoachellaValleyCoffee.com.
We got a whole pot of it going. I'm loving it.
I got my tea. Tony's showing you the Clarity Blend, which has mushrooms in it, supposed to improve your mental outlook and your memory.
You don't taste the mushrooms, though.
No,
I guess they're in there, but I don't taste
Not at all. My husband is loving that tea. That coffee. I like the tea. It's the turmeric chai tea that has the lion's mane in it as well. So whether you drink coffee or tea, you have both. I really think that once you try any of their products, which they have copious tasting notes at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, so you'll get exactly what you're looking. Thank you. Yeah. I'll take it. I think if you check it out and if you order anything, you will be really delighted. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com is the website. And if you do find something you want, please enter Mark T, no spaces, at checkout. Mark T. That's our super secret code that'll get you 10% off of your total. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
Y'all can all go to hell, and I'm going back to Texas.
I blame you.
You just don't get it, really. You don't.
You cannot say you love your country.
Morning.
Where are my weed smokers at?
Your Honor, I'd like to ask for a recess.
I love it when you're angry. We're in better shape, but I don't think we're in wildly better shape.
They pay me a lot of money for having attitude.
This is a man with anger. This is a man that has resentment towards you.
There's always been, in this country, 30 to 35% idiots.
That's pure speculation.
That's not fake. That's real.
Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
Why are you yelling?
What up, everybody? Thank you for being part of our show. You are part of it, whether you realize it or not. Just by stopping through, we appreciate it. The thumbs up is a great way to show us a little love. Costs you nothing, And it's important in the world of YouTube because the more thumbs up you have, the more they share your show. It's Tony explained it to me once. The math that makes sense. So
smash it with your iron rod.
Smash it like a boss. I am. I thought I saw something I need to respond to. You'll tell me if I need to. I saw that. This is from our audience. We get Luis, who says, with a $5 super chat, Kirk advocated for the jailing and execution of Biden, and he is rewarded with a Presidential Medal of Freedom, lowering of flags, and a statue. Hashtag makes no sense. In the political violence area, Vilma Devlin, one of our OGs on the show. Let us not forget Melissa Hartman, who was murdered in her home. Isn't her life worth as much as Charlie Kirk's? I think her Hartman was her last name, but maybe. In any case, your point is well taken. I mean, it's a terrible tragedy that wasn't, in my judgment, sufficiently recognized by the current administration. They just, it was glossed over. Trevor, a star in Hollywood, says, "I'd be very happy, Mark, to send you drops again. I've got quite a few backlogged. How many would you like each week? Maybe you could preview them on the show and have people pick which ones they like." Well, I don't want to get too lost in the drop evaluations, but I would welcome, you want to send me a handful a week? That'd be great. Maybe 6, something like that. Yeah. Mark, I am utterly outraged, says C. Jason Thwaites, that you stated plainly that Kash Patel was good at writing children's books. Yeah, he wrote that children's book, and you can Google this, that had a king or a prince who was it named, if he wasn't named Trump, he was named, you can find it, Kim, you can help me through this, but he's named Trump or something like, very much Donald Trump, right? And then, just Google the names in Kash Patel's children's book about Trump.
I did not ever read that children's book to my kids. We missed that one.
Here it is, The Plot Against the King. Thank you. Is that Tony? Yeah. You are a champ, man.
The Plot Against the King.
So The Plot Against the King was a children's book that Kash Patel wrote, and the main characters are Donald Trump. You can see him there on the cover, the handsome prince holding his scepter. And there is a guy in the book. Here it is. Now that you know more of the facts, it's time for you to think carefully, decide what you think of the king. Don't just trust the person with the loudest trumpet, says somebody who looks a lot like Kash Patel, who's there on the in the illustration. And I think the character's name, what is it?
They said it's a fantastical retelling of Hillary's horrible plot against Trump, and it's a way to bring that to the whole family.
Wow. But anyway, the characters' names, I thought there was like a blow it up a little bit more, Tony, and we'll see it. But the names are very close, just like half a click off of the actual names. So there it is. Afterwards, Kash followed the shifty knight. Literally, he calls himself and King Donald. Oh, so it wasn't, the names weren't half a click off. The king is named Donald, and the hero in the story is Kash, K-A-S-H, just the way Kash Patel spells it.
Yeah.
And the shifty knight.
And he's running against Hillary Queenton. Get it? Yeah.
Wow.
And this is their new hoax.
It's unreal. Well,
the entire book is about an election being stolen. So there you go.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect for the, fun for the whole family. So,
yeah, it's a great bedtime read.
Yeah. I don't know.
It was great. I loved it.
All right. Well, I guess there's a little something for everybody. But I took a break from Facebook, says Wes Theory, who's also an OG on this show. It was making me angry. If you want a temporary break, you can deactivate your account, not delete. Sanity time. You can really drive yourself nuts with the reactions that you'll see on Facebook from people who you're friends, or your quote friends, people who are connected to you, you've been friending. So
especially right now, because there's just, regardless of who you are, everything is so inflammatory, and people are so upset with each other about, their reactions to the Charlie Kirk killing. It's so.
Let's get back to hating immigrants, which is what this entire administration is really. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Here is Brian Kilmeade on Fox News Channel talking about the homeless. So you want to hate on people? How about the homeless and your immigrants? The people you always hate on. These are tried and true. Take a look.
They have given billions of dollars to mental health and the homeless population. A lot of them don't want to take the programs. A lot of them don't want to get the help that is necessary. You can't give them a choice. Either you take the resources that we're going to give you, or you decide that you're going to be locked up in jail. That's the way it has to be now.
Or involuntary lethal injection or something. Just kill them. Or something. Just kill them.
I mean, that's just extraordinary. How can you? And now he subsequently apologized for that, but he said it, and I can't believe you could say it. I mean, he got huge blowback, which is why he apologized, but it was extraordinary.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I just can't believe you can get to that place. Yeah, somebody said, John says, I'm sorry for what I was thinking. Exactly. for thinking out loud. So,
wow.
That's that. What else did I want to play for the boys and girls? Tony, did I have something today I wanted to play? Because I do have a big story after this, but I want to get to. There's Donald Trump on Fox and Friends.
Yeah, about tariffs.
This is about tariffs. The tariff thing is a big deal. I don't know if you saw over the weekend, but there's been a lot of blowback from farmers. We played you last week a bit of the reaction that farmers have had with Congress people who are down in Arkansas, and they are getting immense pushback because of the president's policies. They're in real trouble. Farmers are way, way underwater. And so Donald Trump addresses tariffs, and he did this on his Fox and Friends appearance.
I mean, we've done a great job, despite the fact that we should have lower interest rates. Now, we have two things. We've been successful because of the tariffs. It's given us a great power to negotiate with other countries that took advantage of us. Tremendous power. Also, it's brought in trillions of dollars into our country. We have a big case brought by foreign governments because the foreign governments have been ripping us off for years, and it's now in the Supreme Court. That case is really important to win because it's made us a rich country. It's made us a rich country because I don't want to call it retribution, but we've been ripped off.
Trying to rebalance.
We've been ripped off for years by countries and by having presidents that were not smart in a business sense. I'm not saying they were good politicians, but they were stupid businessmen. They allowed the world to rip us off. If we don't, that Supreme Court case is so important. And frankly, this economy, if we win the tariff case, which we should on the legal merits, but on common sense merit, we would have to give back trillions of dollars
to these countries.
What can you imagine?
All those deals
we would have to give back trillions and trillions of dollars because we got it because of tariffs.
Let me just give you a note of reality. It's not trillions and trillions of dollars. It's not even $1 trillion. What is it, Kim? It's like 150 billion, a couple $100 billion. What is it?
Hold on, I'm Googling.
It's as though Kim didn't know that I was going to ask her
I
this
knew
question.
you were going to. I was writing news. Come on.
Oh, is that it? I see. Anyway, I will tell you that it's not trillions
Kim,
and
how are
trillions
you?
of dollars. So the idea somehow that you have to return trillions and trillions of dollars, or more to the point, it's not a question of returning it. I mean, there will have to be money returned. There'll be lawsuits, and there'll be a number of ways in which that money will be clawed back. But more to the point of at least what he's saying, it's not even $1 trillion. So the idea,
the United States has collected $142 billion from
there
tariff revenue so far this fiscal year,
Yeah,
which ends
so-
in September. So it's $142 billion.
Meanwhile, Arkansas farmers saying they are on the verge of a crisis. They're asking for financial help from the feds. We told you this last week, and we played you some of the statements made, impassioned pleas to the federal government for help. Arkansas leads the nation in rice production, ranks among the top states for cotton, soybeans, and poultry. But fallout from President Trump's tariffs have hurt the market for what they grow there, and some commodity prices are down. And things that the farmers buy to make their crops viable, they're more expensive as well. And essentially what you have is a bunch of farmers who are going under because they have bought against their farm. They have leveraged a lot of these purchases they need to make with farm loans that are leveraged against their farms. The one thing that is seldom talked about is that there are groups of investors who are hovering, and they're hovering around these farming communities, not literally, but they are watching, because as these farmers go under and as these agricultural areas become available, they'll swoop in and get everything for a song. Distressed farmers will have to sell. And many of those who now populate this administration and high-end Wall Streeters, they will swoop in and make these purchases. That's a fact. And so that's the other, I would say, untold story here. Now, as mentioned before, I feel like I mentioned it maybe last week when we were talking about this, during the first Trump administration, the soybean farmers were distressed during that time as well, because their biggest customer, China, has been cut off to them. It was cut off during that first Trump administration. So Trump issued checks to all of those farmers so as not to earn their ire, not to have them peed off at him, right? And so that was a way that he essentially bought out of the anger that those farmers felt. Now we have the same situation. We have China, big customer for American soybean farmers. Only China, because of the tariffs, they've already found a different way to do business. They're going to Brazil for a lot of these soybeans. And so the only reason that China is even remotely interested in playing ball with Donald Trump on tariffs and on American farming that has to do with soybeans is simply because there can be an interruption in the supply chain from Brazil. They're noted for dock strikes. There are a bunch of sort of labor problems that can happen in Brazil, and they don't want that to interrupt the flow of soybeans to China. And so that's the reason that China is kind of still playing ball with Trump on tariffs, at least as it relates to agricultural products. It's a real distressing situation for American farmers, and the tariffs really don't serve anybody positively. And most of all, that propaganda, which you get away with completely unchecked on Fox News Channel, where he says it's brought in trillions and trillions of dollars. How do hosts sit there and let him say that stuff? Even if you don't know the actual numbers the way we do, that we knew it was 150 billion or something like that, 200 billion at the max. And as Kim said, it's 145 billion. Okay.
142.
So even if you don't know that, it's not trillions. It's not trillions and trillions. These conversations that the president has, these conversations that other lawmakers and high-profile people have, they go completely unchecked. But that one is just like a sitter, man. You don't need to know anything to know that that was BS. And yet he just, la-di-da. Meantime, Kim told you about everything going on with tensions rising overseas. But I wanted to mention that the ICE situation in Washington is really reaching some serious levels. In fact, Kim noted that the mayor of Washington has pushed back on everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what has happened is that there may be a series of emergencies declared by the federal government that would allow the total federalization of the district. Isn't that what they're talking about? So the idea somehow that you would end up with Washington, D.C. being more than just, occupied by American National Guard troops, that you would be governed completely by Trump without regard to the mayor, that would reconstitute Washington, D.C., that's a serious, serious threat right now.
Yeah.
President Trump vows to federalize Washington, D.C., after the mayor says the cops will not work with ICE in immigration crackdowns. Meanwhile, the mayor of Memphis is, quote, not happy about the Trump National Guard deployment there. In California, a measure created in response to the LA ICE raids stipulates that masks will be banned for law enforcement officers during ICE operations. Again, this is a bill in the legislature created in response to all of these raids in California, which have been informed by those who are pouring out of, the Penske rental trucks, the official vans that pull up, they've got all these kind of cool cars they drive now, the Dodge Challengers, and it's a real macho thing, but they're all masked.
Yeah.
So California state lawmakers have passed legislation that would ban most law enforcement officers from covering their faces while carrying out operations. And even if the governor signs the measure into law, it's unclear whether the state could enforce it on federal agents. And those are the ones, of course, who are carrying out those raids. Yeah. So we'll see. It'll be about a month away, that legislation. I wanted to look quickly at, did you have something, Kim?
Yeah, I did. I just want to throw this out there because we talked about a lot last week, the arrest of all the South Koreans at the Hyundai factory.
Sure.
And now Trump is saying, hey, listen, foreign workers are welcome in America. He says he doesn't want to disincentivize investment after images of workers chained and handcuffed cause widespread alarm in South Korea, and that foreign workers are welcome here. And I wondered, and I had a question for you, is that Trump saying, oops, my bad, I'm sorry, we shouldn't have arrested the South Korean workers who were here at the Hyundai plant, especially when South Korea is set to invest a massive sum of money into America as far as industry?
Yeah, hundreds of billions of dollars is what we're talking about. And yeah, I think it is. I think that Marco Rubio, or whoever actually is doing any of the lift diplomatically, they have some explaining to do and apologizing to do. So I agree. Yeah, I think very much that's Trump's way of saying, foreign workers are welcome here. I mean, but I also have to say that you would think Kristi Noem might apprise Trump of the planned raid of a major plant. I mean, this is a huge plant that is there in Georgia as part of a reconstituting of that community. They're not this isn't a small effort, as you say. It's part of an infusion of tremendous capital. This is a rural community. It was going to transform the whole community. And now the plant's closed down. So, yeah, I think Trump on some level is trying to communicate, we're on the same page now. But he's going to have to figure out more than just picking up the phone. He's going to have to figure out paperwork that will allow for these workers to be here, which is always what we've wanted. Because the idea somehow that, they've got to come in, Mark, they've got to come in the legal way, they've got to get online like everybody else, that won't work. It takes a decade to become someone who's approved here in America. A decade to become a citizen. It may take a fraction of that, but a significant fraction. It might take 4 years to get a work permit. And it's money. It's expensive. It just doesn't make sense. So you need to okay these workers. You need to broaden the parameters by which you allow this workforce in, and you have to be far more aggressive about it. Otherwise, you're going to see what's happening. I mentioned the farmers. Farmers are going under because they don't have labor. They don't have labor, and they've got tariffs to deal with. They are going under by the scores. You've got a major plant, as Kim just mentioned, in Georgia. That's closed now. You have agricultural fields in California that we spoke of in the last few weeks that are going to be challenged when it comes to any kind of reasonable harvest. There just isn't the labor there. And healthcare and childcare and so on. So I get it. It's fun to wear the Oakleys, to have your vest on, it says ICE. You and your glorified nightclub bouncers that jump out of vans and wrap people up. Some 52-year-old gardener, you throw him to the pavement. It's awful and brutal, and it will destroy the American economy. Absolutely will destroy it.
Korea's trade unions are calling on Trump to issue an official apology. That's not happening. I think the closest he's getting to "my bad, I'm sorry" is this quote: "We welcome them," said Trump. "We welcome their employees. We are willing to proudly say we will learn from them and do even better than them at their own game sometime in the not too distant future." That's your apology.
Oh, that is just the not too distant future thing is like one of his great moves. You know, in 2 weeks I'll have the announcement as to what I'm. It's unreal. I had a great run on that. I'll give it to you for tomorrow because it's just his ability to kind of park it on down the way is extraordinary. But people are. And particularly these sectors of the economy that I've mentioned, farming and the like, they are losing patience with that since nothing really does happen. He's just, kicking the can on down the way. He's not going to worry about it. It makes the news cycle. He deals with it. Oh, yeah, we've got a plan for that. I'm going to be announcing it in the next couple of weeks, and you'll be very happy with it. And then, of course, it just gets kicked down. Tesla's stock is rising. Kim, what happened? Elon Musk had everything to do with this, didn't he?
Yeah, Elon Musk, he bought some of that stock back, 2.5 million shares, I think it was.
Yeah, 2.5 million shares worth about $1 billion.
Yeah.
And so Tesla saw stock rise. The price rose about 7% in pre-market trading. Mm-hmm. Musk purchased various amounts of shares at different prices. This is on Friday. The move may be viewed by the markets as the billionaire remaining confident in the company's future, you see. Earlier this month, of course, Tesla released a proposed pay package. We shared it with you here. It would give Musk so much money that he might become the world's first trillionaire if he hits a series of extremely aggressive targets over the next decade.
Over the weekend, the Pope came out and said, this pay for these people like Musk, this is not right.
Yeah. Pope is not really getting as many people to salute as they used to salute the Pope.
No.
Yeah. But the CDC is saying the loss of expertise there will harm U.S. health. Top officials exiting the agency under RFK Jr.'s leadership and his anti-vax beliefs have dismayed the medical community. Americans should be alarmed, said the former principal deputy director at the CDC, now a visiting professor at Colby College. All of these moves leave us less safe, and it comes at a time of rising public health threats. An unprecedented loss of expertise and a simultaneous erosion of trust as top health officials undermine vaccines and other vital health tools. Project 2025, the conservative blueprint for the second Trump administration, vowed to strip the CDC of its ability to issue any guidance on vaccines and to end required testings for new pathogens. And Project 2025, which Trump had claimed he had no knowledge of, is being followed almost to the letter. Russell Vogt, who was the author of so much of Project 2025, he runs the Office of Management and Budget. And the rest of the Trump administration is populated with the others, many of the others who were authors of Project 2025, which was a detailed breakdown of a plan for dismantling government and ending up where we are here and beyond. The changes to U.S. health will be felt for decades, and the cutbacks and changes will erode the public's already wavering trust in health officials, experts say. Losing top experienced experts managing crucial units in the CDC is going to put all of us at risk, said a professor of law at UC Hastings College of Law. 4 senior officials, their departures dealt a big blow to the nation's health preparedness, according to that same official. Thousands of health agency employees have been laid off or resigned, with entire departments gutted under President Trump.
You mentioned Project 2025, and I saw this piece, this article about an MSNBC piece that aired over the weekend, looking at how well the Trump administration is doing on delivering from the 2025 playbook. And, of course, Trump's like, I don't know what Project 2025 is. I have no idea. I'm not aligned with those people. And now, of course, that most of the people who wrote it are in positions of power in the Trump administration and making it all come to fruition. But one of the things they said, this was Ali Veshy, Ali Veshy.
Yeah.
One of the things he was saying is that they aren't done, that the Heritage Foundation is releasing a new book that takes on the Constitution. And so Veshy said, what could possibly go wrong? Yeah.
Well,
super scary.
I mean, it's absolutely the case that they're not done. I mean, that's certainly true. I mean, Project 2025 was a 900 some odd page document, and it really did have a strategy laid out, step by step. And the damage that will be done will be significant. And maybe we'll play a little bit of Veshy's conclusions. I think Veshy's writing a book, isn't he? Or
as you know, we love to read.
Oh yeah,
we do love to read.
I think he's got a book that he's working on that's related to that as well. But anyway, we'll run a little bit of it another time. I was going to say that just to round out the RFK Jr. thing, because this is, I know what's happening is undermining faith, also undermining confidence and undermining research and all of these things associated with what's happening at NIH, the CDC. But he has often said, RFK Jr., and he said it in his confirmation hearing, I'm not going to take away anybody's vaccines. But as noted here, beyond restricting who is eligible for certain shots, as he's already done for this year's COVID shots, experts are saying Kennedy can take steps that could drive drug companies to stop making vaccines entirely. In the 1980s, lawsuits fueled by then the nascent anti-vaccine movement, just beginning then, it led more than a dozen manufacturers to stop producing vaccines and created shortages of vaccines. The director of the Vaccine Education Center at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia is a former guest on this show and a future guest on the show. We'll have him back, Dr. Paul Offit. And he points out that domestic vaccine production survived only because Congress stepped in to create a no-fault alternative to the traditional legal system. The National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program that protected vaccine makers from liability. It created a special vaccine court to award financial damages to people who are harmed by vaccines. So the legal protections for plaintiffs and drug makers have helped ensure that the United States has a reliable supply of vaccines ever since. But now, RFK Jr. has that same program in his sights. He sees vaccine manufacturers as the enemy, clearly, and he's been involved in litigation against them, and he's amped up his attacks on that program. He disparages the program on social media, and he vowed to, quote, fix it. So what could happen if RFK Jr. were to change things and instead of quickly and fairly, which was sort of the way it was suggested, awarding compensation, you'd end up with a flood of litigants, and you'd end up with the entire system being bogged down, and you'd end up, obviously, with drug makers pushing away from the table. We just don't want to deal with it. So RFK Jr. can animate, in effect, the legal system and the legal culpability that a lot of these drug makers would find themselves in. And so these vaccine makers would be, as I say, just pushing away from the table. Vaccines are overwhelmingly safe. They've saved 154 million lives over the past 5 decades, according to the World Health Organization. But about 1 in a million vaccine causes a serious injury, like a life-threatening allergic reaction. And in that way, the way in which these companies pay into this fund, people can seek claims for injuries that they've suffered as a result of vaccines. It's a 75-cent surcharge on vaccines. It's helped thousands of people. They've awarded $5.4 billion to plaintiffs, so it's not an insubstantial amount of money. If you were to undermine this program, you, again, could see the destruction of vaccines in this country. In fact, Paul Offit was saying, if you want to destroy vaccines in this country, if your goal is to eliminate vaccine manufacturing in America, the best way to do it is through attacking that program. So, more on this. I'll get Paul Offit on the show again. He was terrific. We exchanged emails after his visit, and we'll address more of it. But I think it's, it's where we are. And it's part of Project 2025, to Kim's point. So that's all to be continued. Now, I have a
The Mark Thompson Show.
I have a program note. Tomorrow, it's David K. Johnston. Is that right, Kim?
That is correct.
And he'll be joined tomorrow, I thought, by someone else. Am I wrong about that?
I don't know that. I didn't expect a special guest star. But please.
All right. Well, maybe he won't be joined by anybody.
We'll have to wait on pins and needles to see if this actually happens.
Right.
I don't know.
I will have my pins and needles ready to check that out. I am still, David K. Johnston will be here, and seldom do we need anyone else but David K. Johnston.
That's right.
Rev P says we must all convert to MAGA, otherwise be jailed and exiled. Yeah, that would be, sure does feel like that's the way it's going. Charlie Kirk pushed the Great Replacement Theory, says A-Golf. The Great Replacement Theory was responsible for the shooting at Walmart in El Paso, the Buffalo shooting at the Tops grocery store, the Tree of Life Synagogue shooting in Pennsylvania. This is true about Charlie Kirk pushing the Great Replacement Theory. It's absolutely true.
What is that theory?
That theory is that these immigrants are here to replace you for your job. And this influx of immigrants is...
Where are they? Are they here?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, got it.
They would at least know what the tariffs brought in instead of having to wait on the...
Google it.
I'm just saying. Look, I'm open to another person doing Kim's job, to be honest.
What?
I'm just saying...
Yeah.
If we could find somebody, immigrant or not, I would have auditions. I mean, I'm just...
Who is having conversation?
I don't know.
It's online. You could outsource it to a different country even.
Oh, that's true. I could outsource it to, or I can, yeah, exactly right. Luis says, I think that worm in RFK Jr.'s head was filled with tequila. Thus, it's decision-making. Yeah, it does seem as though he's addled by something, doesn't it? Luis, thank you. An OG of this show and a Southern California viewer as well. And Jolly Ranch, I think I acknowledged it already, but thank you, Jolly. Love you. Thanks for the super chat and saying that you love the show. I always appreciate it. I have a crisis of confidence like anybody else. Hard as we work. When we come to you tomorrow, Tony will be here again, which is something that, Tony's got a pretty substantial group of people who love seeing him.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. And
if they actually knew me.
Thanks for your hustle today. Kim will be here as well. And as I say, David K. Johnston tomorrow as well. No way. Kim is the GOAT, says Chaplain Fred. She is the greatest of all time. It is true. But what is she great at is the question. She is
we
the
don't
greatest.
know. We're not sure.
Did you see the Emmys and the In Memoriam? Yeah, I did. I've got some comments on there were some good parts of the Emmys, but, as usual, parts that... and the In Memoriam always disappoints me. But
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
I am grateful to all of you.
Bye-bye.
I'm out of time. Can't do anything more. Kim is over at the After Party Live. Till tomorrow. Bye-bye. Bye.